Guys, this is only going to take a couple of seconds. You've seen the images, the heart-wrenching images of those kids in Yemen who are starving. We must do something about it. Click the link below and donate now. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you guys doing? Myriam Francois Serra is a 42-year-old French journalist who's done some good works for the Palestine cause. In fact, she's recently come on, and Zishan Smarter Jannah had a video supporting her. The Dawa boy Zishan is supporting her because of her good works for Palestine. And also, I remember watching some of the things that she used to do on something called Big Questions, which is a program that used to come every Sunday in the UK. And she was one of the main protagonists, in fact, advocating the pro-Islamic position, clarifying some of the misconceptions about Islam. Very articulate, very good. And unfortunately, I don't know what's happened, but she's embroiled herself in what I'm going to be calling the sexual name-calling scandal. And I don't understand where this came from. One of my friends sent me a lecture of hers where she delivered, and she delineated her positionality, if you want to call it that, both theologically and ideologically. I want to leave you with one clip and then come back and respond to it in kind.
Defensive posturing about the great gains Islam brought for women in the 7th century says nothing about whether or not it continues to be a force for good in the advancing of women's rights today.
This first clip here, okay, she is questioning whether or not Islam is a force of good in the modern world. Now, someone may make a plethora of different excuses for her and say that she was just doing this. Maybe I'm misinterpreting what she means by Islam. Maybe she means it in a civilizational sense. Maybe she means it in some other sense. Okay, no problem. Let's look at the second clip.
And high-profile cases of sexual slavery from India to here in Europe are sadly far too common. But surely the question shouldn't be whether Islam is uniquely oppressive towards women, but more so why it isn't providing the liberating principles which were so critical to the Prophet, peace be upon him's early message. Moving to textual Islam itself, there are undoubtedly verses and sayings of the Prophet, peace be upon him, which continue to cause concern in their current understanding. The juristic and exegesis-based heritage is, in many ways, deeply patriarchal and at times undeniably misogynistic.
So here she is talking about hadith. Now, Islam is comprised, as many people know, Quran and hadith. These are the primary sources of Islam. And she's talking about Islam, the hadith, the prophetic sayings, which are the hadith, and in their jurisprudential understanding, which is the mainstream normative traditional understanding. And she's questioning whether or not they're misogynistic. And she is actually saying that they are undeniably misogynistic. Now, once again, if I were to go in the street now and ask people whether or not they would think that a Muslim could say this, I think that they would say no. I would say, if I were to put the words of Myriam Francois Serra to people in the streets, they would say this is likely said, or these words are likely said by some anti-Islamic proponent. Someone may say, okay, well, maybe she meant that, maybe she meant this. Let's take a look at the third clip.
Progressive interpretations continue to argue that this is merely a symbolic gesture. Symbolic of what, we must question? Of power relations which give men the right to treat grown women like petulant children. My feeling generally about religion is that it ought to elevate the soul to higher ethical planes. If we fall back on the all too easy, these are problems found everywhere, the question remains of what exactly Islam is contributing to improving women's lot, rather than adding its own layer of culturally or religiously specific justifications for these injustices.
So here, she's talking about a verse in the Quran, 434, chapter 4, verse 34, and she's quoting a progressive interpretation, in her words, and she's rejecting this progressive interpretation. Now, my question would be then, if you're rejecting the most progressive interpretation of 434, what interpretation do you accept? Do you accept any interpretation? Because the answer to this question implicates you as either a Muslim or a non-Muslim. So if you say, no, I don't actually believe in this verse, and say what Amina Wadud said, who was a feminist, who said, I had a conscientious gap when I looked at 434. She said, these are the words she used. I had a conscientious gap. Okay, if that's your position, then the question is, how is it the case that you still identify as a Muslim? I mean, this would be the question I then ask. Because Islam is you believe in every single word of the Quran. You believe in every single instruction given by the Prophet. This is what Islam is. But it gets worse, actually, because as I was listening to these kufri statements and statements of disbelief and statements of deviance and all this kind of things, and I was feeling sorry for her and actually feeling a great deal of disappointment, actually, there was something else that I realized, that she was actually making blunders about the Islamic tradition. Let's look at the fourth clip and take a look at what we're talking about.
Taoist teachings regard pregnant women as models of meditation because of the recognition of the superhuman levels of concentration and transcendence required in labor. Women are quite literally masters of meditation, to be studied and learned from. All I could find in Islamic sources was some advice about eating dates. It's sad and telling that pregnancy and childbirth and child rearing are not afforded the preeminence in our scholastic manuals that they ought to, but just viewed legalistically through the dry prism of juristic formalities.
So here she says that she compares Islam, and this is astonishing, actually. It's actually outrageously astonishing, because she's comparing Islam with Taoism, okay? And she's saying that when you look at the Taoist tradition, you see that the pregnant woman, for example, she's being described in this way, which is she has superhuman meditative capabilities. And comparing that with what she found in Islam, all she could find is a few scraps here and there about women taking dates when she's pregnant. Now, this is a ridiculous thing. Now, to my knowledge, she does not have access to the Arabic language, number one. But I will say to you, you don't even need access to the Arabic language. There are hadiths of an eschatological nature, of a spiritual nature. For example, the hadith of, very famous one, if a pregnant woman dies giving birth, then she dies a shaheed, she dies a martyr. I don't think the Taoist tradition or the Christian tradition or the Jewish tradition or any other tradition actually has a hadith this explicit and this respecting of the woman's position as a pregnant woman, exactly the category that you have spoken about. It's, of all things you could have mentioned, you mentioned a thing which Islam puts so much stress on and gives so much to respect to women on. And I could speak for hours about this, actually. But it shows, with all due respect, your ignorance on the matter. So, for example, in chapter number 46 of the Quran, where Allah mentions about the mother, حَمَلَتْهُ كُرْهًا وَوَضَعَتْهُ كُرْهًا, that the woman, when she's pregnant, she's doing so in a state of difficulty, and when she's giving birth, she's doing so in a state of difficulty. There is commemoration, there is recognition of the woman's position as a pregnant woman, okay, in the Quran, I would argue more than any other ancient religious text. Okay, for you to make a mockery out of yourself, not even the Islamic tradition, by misrepresenting the Islamic tradition and saying that, well, all I could find was a few things here about the dates and this and that. It shows your ignorance on this topic. It does show your ignorance on this topic. But putting that aside, okay, let's get to the scandal and the title of this video. What is the scandal? My friends were sending me some things yesterday after she blocked me on Twitter. And I didn't understand what was going on. I mean, she's now attacking the Dawah guys, and then she blocked me. And then it turns out this woman has been trying to get my attention since 2022. And she's been, quote tweeting me or whatever it is, and saying things. Let's take a look at the screen and see what we're talking about here. Referring to me and others as Muslim incel Twitter. And then on the other hand, we're the F-boys. She referred to us famously recently. Ali has a video responding to that. As F-boys. Okay, I'm not going to use the profanity here. But she's referring to us as F-boys, which, if you look at the Urban Dictionary, whatever it is that you have to look at, means a man who's sexually promiscuous. I mean, he's going from one to another, casual sex and these kind of things. But an incel is an involuntary celibate. So, are we having sex with, because it's a contradiction, isn't it? I mean, are we having sex with all these women? Or are we involuntary celibate? I mean, but why is it the case, Myriam? Sorry, I'm going to address you directly now, and don't get any ideas. But why is it the case that whenever you mention either myself or the Dawah sector in general, there's some comment of a sexual nature that happens? What kind of predatory behavior is this? What kind of harassment is this? Now, it's an honest question. Both of these things here, incel is to do with a person's non-engagement with sex. F-boy is someone's over-engagement with sex. Why is it whenever you mention the Dawah boys or Mohammed Hijab or quote tweet him and that, try and get his attention, try and get their attention, why is it all the time that you're now making references to sexual intercourse of in the connotation, the subtext of what you're saying? What's going on? If I were to ask you a question, and this is the title of this video. What if Andrew Tate had said the same thing? Andrew Tate, somebody, and we're not afraid to criticize him. I made a video just last week criticizing the man for his alliances with the right wing. Just last week, got 300,000 views. But he's been lambasted. I mean, the mistakes that he's made in the last year, okay, of a religious nature, he's been lambasted by the Muslim community. Men and women, by the way, both have lambasted him. You've been a Muslim for 20 years as a revert, yeah? You've been a Muslim for over 20 years. And you're now making all these mistakes that we've seen here of a theological nature, which, by the way, I've not seen any reprimand of, surprisingly, Annie. And now you're taking a sub-segment of Muslim men, and you are generalizing them. You're speaking about them in this way. What if Andrew Tate had said the same thing about Muslim women? Let's say, for example, for the sake of argument, hijabi influencers. Like, substitute dawah boys with hijabi influencers, and let's make Andrew Tate the one who said the same statements. What kind of outrage would there be? The answer to this question, quite frankly, it shows you the level of misandry that exists in the Muslim community and at large. And what is misandry? It is the hatred of men. I'm sorry to say, this is a reasonable inference to the best explanation. Why is it that when one makes a mistake, and he's been a Muslim for 1 year, that you have all of this attack, and you've been a Muslim for 20 years, and making all these theological mistakes, attacking subsections of Muslim society, using colonial narratives, using liberal and feministic narratives, which are knowledge productions of the West. Now you're imposing them on us. You want Islam to fit in line with that model, and you're attacking subsections. Why is it that you can say that? Unchecked and unaccounted. And if we say anything, oh, but she's a pro-Palestine activist. What do you mean? What do you mean that she's a pro-Palestine activist? She can see what she wants. She was lecturing for the Dean Institute, which is her ex-husband, Adam Dean, who used to be part of Quilliam, who was colleagues or connected with Tommy Robinson. She was part of a ecosystem of anti-Islamic propaganda. And don't let anyone fool you. With all due respect, don't let anyone fool you. Just because somebody claims to be a Muslim, like Quilliam Foundation, you have people like Majid Nawaz. Now he's changing for the better. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to interrupt a person when they're doing a good deed. If he's repenting and he's going in the right direction, good. If he's not, then Allah will be the judge of him. But he was part of that. And he was claiming to be a Muslim, but at the same time doing everything anti-Islamic, allying and sitting and collaborating with Tommy Robinson and other far-right people like Sam Harris. If you're part of that ecosystem now, yeah, and you're disseminating this kind of falsehood, theological deviance, with all due respect, it doesn't matter if you're wherever you're from, whatever country you're from, whatever gender you are. If you, as a feminist, I'm not even going to judge you by Islam now. I'm going to judge you on feminism. If you as a feminist want equal rights, then prepare to face equal responsibilities. I'm not going to discriminate just because you're a woman. I'm not going to refrain from refuting you just because you're a woman. That would be a disrespect to your feministic sensibilities. You will get refuted and repudiated and humiliated even if it needs to be done, okay? If you come out against any members of our society, and just because you had that card, I don't know if you still identify as a Muslim, now you can go further than any white feminist could, by the way. A white feminist could not say the things that you're saying without being labeled as an Islamophobe, just to let you know. And you know, just because you had membership of that group at one point in time, and once again, I don't know if you still maintain membership there, that you can go further, and in the same video you're attacking Imam al-Ghazali, you're attacking al-Qurtubi, you're attacking al-Shafi'i, huge scholars, and you can't even speak, you can't even enunciate the Arabic language properly. And you have the right now, you think, because you've had some Western education, that you can go and attack a whole different tradition with your colonial mentality. No thanks. I don't think so, my friend. But I'm going to end this with a good note, because someone will say, well, guys, I understand where you're coming from, and you have convinced me. I know many women that will be watching this video are going to say that. You've convinced me, and yes, we do have double standards. Yes, there's a problem with misandry in society and all that kind of thing. You have convinced me, Hijab. But let's be honest, Hijab, you have some staunch opinions as well. You're a bit strict. You've been a bit exclusionary with women as well in your discourse. Putting aside that feministic extreme of Myriam, Francois, Sarah, the Lawrence of Arabia of the modern age that's coming in and trying to disunite us. Yeah? putting that person to the side, you still got staunch views, and your discourse is exclusionary. What I'm going to say to you is this: I hear what you're saying, and we're here to make this into a complementary system. Men and women should not, these gender wars, we want to create a ceasefire, and we need to understand that yes, this is a complementary system. Men and women should come together and not have this embitterment and this hatred and this unnecessary resentment towards each other in the community, and instead we're working together in the community. This is what I am now a proponent of. I'll be honest with you, if there was a war between men and women, I take the side of the women. I love way more women than I do men. Trust me. There's way more females that I'd want to protect than men. If there was a war between men and women, I'd take the side of women. Putting all that to the side though, I'm saying we have a complementary system and we have a shared struggle. As a minority, we don't want to marginalize ourselves further by infighting. We do want unity, which is why, and this is going to be shameless here, but I'm going to do a plug here for the series that's going to come out and change the world. It's called Burning Hands, and it does tell the story of Muslim minorities in the West. It tells the story of Muslim minorities' struggle against far-right people like Tommy Robinson, who this person was loosely connected with. We'll tell the story of our struggle against all of these forces, young people, men and women. Yes, I know we've gotten some controversy because of it. We do have women in the show, but we can't tell the story about Muslim people without Muslim women. This show is going to come out on the 22nd of July on this channel. It's going to be free to watch, and it's going to come out at 7 o'clock London time. I'll leave you with the trailer. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.